Welcome to the Parenting Power Podcast, supporting parents with the real-life tools they need to raise the confident, interdependent people the world needs. Gail Bell and Julie Friedman-Smith interview experts who share their knowledge to assist parents in creating a home environment where kids can thrive.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Real-Life Parenting Podcast. I'm Julie Friedman-Smith.
And I'm Gail Bell.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Beaner's Fun Cuts for Kids hair salons. Parenting is hard, haircuts shouldn't be. Visit beanersfuncuts.com for a location near you.
Today's podcast is also sponsored by our book, A Year of Intentional Parenting. Head over to our website, parentingpower.ca, and use the code BOOK5 to get $5 off of our book, and we'll ship it directly to you. Today, our guest is Linda Kavelin-Popov, best-selling author and international speaker on personal and global transformation. In 1991, she co-founded the Virtues Project, which was honored by the United Nations as a model global program for families of all cultures. Linda's clients span the globe. She has spoken at conferences such as the Dalai Lama's Seeds of Compassion Conference and appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show with the Family Virtues Guide. The Virtues Project has inspired and mobilized thousands to commit acts of service and generosity, to heal family abuse, and to transform their communities from violence to virtues. And Parenting Power has been a fan forever. We are so excited. Welcome, Linda, all the way from Hawaii.
Thank you so much, Julie.
Linda, we're thrilled to have you here today, as Julie and I have used your book so much, The Family Virtues Guide, as a resource for so many of our clients over the years. How did you end up writing that book and why?
Well, our family was actually looking for a service project, and we had this defining moment with my brother John, who was an Imagineer for Walt Disney at the time, where we talked about how could we be of more direct service to the world. And he got so excited about it, he was willing to leave Disney. So we spent a summer looking at what could we do. And we realized that because of my work as a psychotherapist at the time, where I was doing a lot of suicide prevention work amongst teenagers, we realized that that was a huge issue. Suicide and murder being two of the leading causes of death of our youth, age 15 to 24. And so we thought, what could we do? And we realized that if we could help them understand the meaning of their lives, that could make a huge difference. And so we thought, well, where do you go for the meaning of life? And my husband, Dan, who's a pediatric clinical psychologist and a scholar of the world's sacred traditions, all the holy books of the world, we thought, well, why don't we look there for the meaning of life? And that's where we found the virtues as universal positive qualities of character and the qualities of the soul. So that's how it got started.
Wow. And it has really carried on so far, and it touches so many different cultures, as we mentioned in the introduction. And,
yes,
and maybe that's why, because it's based on those things as well. That's phenomenal.
Yes.
Linda, you often speak of the 5 virtue strategies, the first 3 being speaking the language of virtues, recognizing teachable moments, and setting clear boundaries based on restorative justice. Can you please share with our listeners the importance of each?
Yes, I'd love to. We came up with these 5 strategies to help parents have tools so that they would not shame their children, but instead call forth the best within them. And so the language of virtues is used to appreciate a child. That was a helpful thing you did when you set the table. Or if everybody's working and one child is not doing their chores, to say, it's time to be helpful, honey. So let's get started. Learning to be helpful, learning to be kind. So calling them to the virtue when they need it, but always acknowledging it when you see it, especially in a child who's been struggling with a virtue and they have had a little victory. That is when you just zoom right in and say, you know what? You were really much more peaceful today at school because you only had 3 fights instead of 23. So you always encourage the improvement. So the language of virtues is a way for us to think about our own lives. What are our strengths and what are our growth virtues? And children have all of their virtues are pretty much growth virtues at the beginning, except for one, which is compassion. They always seem to have love and compassion as well. So teachable moments to recognize means that you look for those moments when maybe things aren't going so well, and you say to the child, what's going to help you to have courage to talk to your teacher about this problem? Or what will help you to be kind to your brother even when you're mad at him? How can you have a peaceful way of dealing with that? So it's recognizing a moment when there's a possible life lesson. And that applies to ourselves as well as our children, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Then setting clear boundaries, that comes from the teaching of the Virtues Project, that the authority of the parent is always in service of the child's learning. So we're not here to punish our children, we're here to educate them. So if they violate some boundary that hopefully we have set clearly and they know what the consequence will be, then setting that boundary is a way to say to them, this is what is acceptable behavior, and outside of that, it's not. So you need to recall them back to the virtue that they violated. So say, for example, a young child has a friend over to play, and hopefully we're going to get back to that ability to do that.
Yeah, we will.
Yes, we will. So the child starts playing and picks up a toy, and the host child hits them over the head with the toy because they don't want them to play with it. So it's better to prepare children ahead of time and to say, when your friend comes over, you need to decide what you're going to share with him, and we'll put the other things away. So you need to be hospitable when your friend comes, or you need to be kind to your friend, or generous. So a boundary is set, and if the child is not able to do that, they can take a time out, and you always call them back to the virtue. So now that you've spent 2 minutes in your room, are you ready to be generous with your friend? What do you need to do so that your friend has a happy time? So boundaries are the family rules. How do we want to treat each other? And the older a child gets, especially in their teens, they need to be part of setting those boundaries, their curfews, the times, how they're going to contact you if they're changing their destination. So there have to be boundaries about keeping children safe. And there's also boundaries that each of us has for how we're going to treat ourselves, our self-care, our health, that you take on just what you can handle and not more, so that you can keep what I call a pace of grace. So boundaries are what keep us safe within what is the best way for us to move forward.
That's a great definition. And just always bringing it back to those virtues just keeps it positive.
It does, exactly. Because there's such a huge difference between shaming a child. Say they hit another child over the head with a block. You can either say, that is the meanest thing I've ever seen, you're not fit to play with other children, and taking the block away and smacking them, which models violence right back to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not who is the strongest violent person. It's teaching them what's the virtue that you want them to learn when they have an impulse to hurt. You want them to learn self-discipline. You want them to learn peacefulness. So you remove the block and you say, you don't hurt people. We have to be kind to other people, even when we're angry. So how could you have handled that peacefully? Now, there's another strategy that we can talk about, which is offering spiritual companioning, because sometimes you can't give the lesson until you've actually heard what was going on with the child. So you take the block away and you say, that's not okay to hurt someone. We have to be kind even when we're angry. So what happened? What got you feeling angry? And you listen, and then you say, so what can you do next time you feel mad? What can you do instead of hitting somebody? Use your voice. So it's always about coming back to the virtues that are in their true nature. They have them inside of them. And a parent is an educator that literally brings out the best in that child because it's there.
That's right. So it's all about that modeling and supporting and being really clear on the boundaries. You've talked about offering spiritual companioning. How about the fifth one then, honoring the spirit? Can you expand on that?
Yes, of course. Honoring the spirit means, first of all, you treat every person with dignity, and especially little children, because, that old saying that used to be around when I was growing up, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me, is a big fat lie.
Yes, it is.
Because the labels that we get from our parents and their ignorance of not knowing how deeply it affects us, that will follow us the rest of our lives. And so we need to, first of all, treat children with dignity, even when they're doing something terrible. They're doing something terrible. It doesn't mean they're a terrible person. We fall back into shame and guilt when our children do awful things, but all kids do terrible things.
Mhm.
They all lose their temper. They all have tantrums. It's a very rare child that has a very peaceful nature and never does that. But whatever their issue is, we need to avoid humiliating them. So we need to honor their spirit. So I always say, when someone says to their child, say hello to Auntie, and the child hides behind them and they say, oh, she's just shy. I say, well, I'm sure she'll be friendly when she's ready. I don't like to hear labels. So that is one of the ways we honor the spirit. Another way is to have some reflective or spiritual practice in your family. Children love mysticism. They love spiritual things. They are very good meditators. It's very helpful to have a family time for prayer, for something inspirational. And children really need a relationship with their higher power, whatever that is for your family, for it to be real. And so honoring the spirit is, first of all, the dignity, then giving them some routine of reverence that really every human soul needs, whatever your belief system, times of quiet and silence. Another way is to make sure that they get experiences in the beauty of nature, because that just inspires us all to have a time at the beach, to go out and look at the clouds, look at the sky. Even if you're in a city, to find a park, lie in the grass and count the clouds or look for faces in the clouds. It's taking that quiet time to really nurture the child's spirit. And the other thing is the arts. Music and art really are a vehicle for the spirit. And so if we see any talent in our child or any love for those things, we want to encourage it. A friend of mine just told me about how they completely rearranged their apartment. They have a 3-bedroom apartment. She has 3 children. She's a single mom. And her 14-year-old got all excited about redoing the apartment and made up plans. She drew out plans for moving the bedroom into the living room. And the mother went with this. And these kids are so excited that their house is different now and it meets the needs of everybody better. So that's an example of how she showed such respect for her daughter's design ability that she actually went with the plan, So there's lots of ways to honor that spirit. I would love to say more about the boundaries for a minute. I found that having a physical vision up on the wall, just drawing symbols of each of our family rules or family boundaries, was very meaningful to my boys when they were little. I had 2 sons, and when one of them was 3, we had to have a rule because we lived on a beach. I'm an island person. I always seem to live on islands, as I do now here in Hawaii. But we lived on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina, and there was sand everywhere because we lived quite near the beach. So one of our boundaries was, when you come in the house, you always hose off your legs and your feet, because we had all tile floors. And another rule was, no children are allowed in the house if mommy is not here. Even if you have a babysitter, no other children are allowed in the house. So I came home one day and I could feel sand under my feet on the floor. And I knew there was another child in the house because he didn't follow the rules. So what I did was I made a sign, and for the one about washing off your feet, had a little picture of a hose on the toe, the big toe and the feet. And then each one had a symbol. And it's very important to make these visuals. And as they get older, the kids can enjoy making a poster. At the beginning of each year, you might want to reevaluate your rules. But they need to be clear, and they need to have concrete educative consequences, not punitive. Because there's no point to that. That just causes resentment. What we need is educative consequences that fit the crime. Let the punishment fit the crime. And it always needs to be something that they learn. So for my boys, if they were not home on the dot of 5 from their explorations as they got older, they had this consequence of losing a day. The next day they had to stay in the house. But they never broke that rule. They were just, it was very sacred to them because they'd never broken it. So I just wanted to say a little more about that.
Well, and I know that there are listeners like me who are saying, so what happened with the sand on the floor that day, and what happened with the friend that was over?
Okay, well, the friend had to leave, and I told him, you know, you're welcome to play here when my boys have permission for you to come. And next time you come, are you willing to wash off your feet so that when you come in, you're keeping our floors clean? He goes, yes. But he had to go right away. But you can do it kindly.
Exactly.
You know, so, and the boys, I said, look, I need to be able to trust you guys. So you need to use your trustworthiness. Oh, I wanted to tell you one more thing about spiritual companioning. Before I told them what was going to happen, I said, what made you break that rule to bring your friend in? And one of my boys said, I felt sorry for him because he was lonely. He didn't have anybody to play with. I said, you know what? I really appreciate your compassion for him. So next time you just need to remember the rule, and you can tell him, come back when my mom comes home, and then you can play with us. So it's always good to ask the question, what happened? What were you thinking? Not what were you thinking, but
Yeah.
Yeah. We love the term, help me to understand.
yes, very
You know,
good.
help me to understand how this boy came to be here. That's a sentence starter that we use at Parenting Power a lot.
Very excellent.
Yeah, because often it's very, very clear to the child. It's just that we
Yes.
as adults do not see things in the same way, obviously. So
Exactly.
Another way we phrase that is, I'm thinking this. Am I thinking right, or were you thinking something different?
That is just brilliant. I think for any relationship, not only with children.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, to get at the truth.
Yes. And the multiple truths, right? Like everybody has a different perspective.
Oh, yes.
I really appreciate so much the way you talk about honoring spirit and spiritual companioning, and really allow in your language and in your book for many, many different religions and beliefs to be able to follow your book, because
Yes.
I'm Jewish. And so sometimes when I go to pick up a book and I think, oh, it looks a little bit religious for me. And oftentimes it's not the religion that our family follows.
Yes.
And what I love about your book is that you can incorporate as much of what you believe as is right for your family. And
yes.
also, Gail and I have talked about this many times, that generations ago, a lot of this teaching, a lot of this virtues teaching would have happened in some kind of religious education and in religious
Yes.
institution. And as the world is shifting and continues to shift, and perhaps there are families who aren't following a specific spiritual path, your book really allows us to find a way to create a routine to check in once a week and honor and focus on one virtue for that week, so that we can still figure out what's important to our families, what we want to model for our kids, what we want to teach, and help them to understand what that looks like. And I just love the layout of your book so much, and it's been so helpful to our family our families over the years, but also to many of our clients as well.
Oh, Julie, thank you. You know, people wondered when we first started this project if we had some hidden religious agenda. And really, for us, it's all about just helping people to access that ancient wisdom that's in all the faiths, but it's also in philosophies. You know, it's not only religious people that believe in courage or honor or justice. So I remember that one of the first workshops we gave, gosh, it was like 30 years ago. And there was a woman in the workshop, it was in Seattle, and she said that she was an atheist, came from a long line of atheists. And so kind of in the middle of the workshop, I said, so how is this working for you? Because in our book, we do have quotes from different holy books, you know, the Bible and the Torah and the Bhagavad Gita and so on. She said, I don't have a problem with it. When you talk about God in the book of introducing your children to God, I just put another O in the middle of the word and I'm fine with it.
Clever.
Yes.
Love that. Love that. Now, I think you've already done this, Linda, but we often ask our guests to share a real life parenting tool that they've used in their own families. I feel like you've already shared that, but if there's anything else that you wanted to share on that regard, we'd love to hear it.
I would love to, because the thing my children remember most about their childhood is something called a virtues tree. And there's actually instructions in the Family Virtues Guide for how to create the virtues tree. It's basically a felt board, and you get different colors of felt and you cut out fruits that go on the tree. And so we had obedient orange and patient pear and prayerful plum and kind kiwi and that kind of thing. And as they got older, they just loved renaming the fruits. So, Reverend rutabaga, which is not even a fruit, you know, things like that. But what we would do is we would sit with the felt board, and the main thing I would do is try to remember or think of a virtue that I saw them practicing. Because when you catch children in the act of practicing a virtue, it's so deeply encouraging that they can see that then in themselves. So I would say, okay, I'm picking patient pear for you because yesterday you had to wait a long time for me to get off the phone and you were really patient with me. You know, so I would put patient pear up there. And it's just fun for the whole family to say, what is the virtue I saw in each of us, adults and children? And you can easily make it with a piece of cardboard and some felt. So it's a wonderful tool for calling our attention back to what matters most in life, which is those virtues of love, kindness, honesty, and justice, things like that.
That's great. I love the felt board. I love getting back to the real hands-on touch things for kids. That's great. Well, Linda, it's been such a pleasure for us to get connected and have a platform for our audience to learn from you. We really appreciate you sharing all your knowledge and thoughts with us. If listeners want to find out more information about you or the Virtues Projects, where's the best place for them to follow you?
Well, there's a couple of places. I'm on LinkedIn, and I have my own website, Kavelin-Popov.com, and that's Kavelin-Popov, just one long, Kavelin-Popov.com. And then there's thevirtuesproject.com. And one thing I'd love to mention is there's a new app for phones and tablets and computers, which is called Virtues Cards. You can get it on any shop, and it has the family cards, it has personal reflection cards for adults, and it has a new set called Resilience Cards. And my husband and I and my brother put those together, and they're being used everywhere around the world, lots of translations. And it's like holding the wisdom of the world in the palm of your hand. So we're always saying, if you want to help virtues go viral, get the Virtues app.
Okay.
It's just called Virtues Cards.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to checking that out. Well, I'm grinning from ear to ear. My heart is full. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your kindness with us today, and that it will continue forever and ever, because Gail and I would love every family to get this book because it's so helpful, and we really appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you for your graciousness and your enthusiasm for the virtues and your kindness to me. Really appreciated it.
Thanks, Linda.
We hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Real Life Parenting Podcast. If you're looking for more real-life parenting tools, then please sign up for our weekly Thoughtful Thursday email newsletter. It's free and it's really good. Just visit our website, parentingpower.ca, to subscribe. While you're there, check out our book, A Year of Intentional Parenting. Like this podcast, the book was created to help you feel confident, capable, and calm. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to connecting with you again right here every Monday.